I am going to turn the presentation over to him. Mind you, we want you to share the link. We will be placing it in the chat. It will also be live streamed to YouTube as it currently is. But again, during the Q&A session, we won't be. So if you are watching on YouTube, we encourage you to join us on the Zoom so that you can participate during the Q&A session. Thank you so much, and I'm going to turn this over to Brother Ricardo.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, good evening, maybe even good night, wherever you are. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for the opportunity to share again one more time. It's another Sunday evening at Table of Christ. And I always believe that it is God's desire that his people prosper and be in health, even as our soul prospereth. And we live in a world that requires information so we can make proper interventions in the issues of life. And today we're talking about dental health. It's not a very popular topic. It's not always an easy topic, and there are different schools out there in terms of the information. So remember, we're sharing information for education purposes only. And so as we go this evening, I pray that we will truly be blessed by the presentation. We want to say thanks to God for the platform and all those who operate the platform. So we want to go right in. We want to bow our heads and we want to close our eyes as we have prayer. Let's pray. We thank you, Father, for your goodness, your love. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And when you designed us, we were fearfully and wonderfully made. We are not a part, we are entire body. When people look at us, they identify us primarily by our face, our smile, and part of that is our mouth, where we can sing your praise, talk of your goodness, but our teeth, very important. And so you made us in this way to be able to process the food and to give us a wonderful smile, to give our faces some structure so we can really glorify you in our body and in our spirit. So thank you again. Be with us and all those who have joined this evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen, amen, and amen. When it comes to teeth, people become a little bit sensitive because some people really have wonderful teeth. They're well formed and they seem to exude confidence when they smile. But there are some people, on the other hand, that they are not so confident. Remember, God made us beautiful, but sin has messed things up because we have moved away from that which God has as his ideal. Teeth are not just teeth. They are not only for processing. When we are children, we learn we have different types of teeth in our mouth. You come in the world and you have no teeth, and then teeth starts to grow, and you have a first set, they call them milk teeth, and then those fall out, and you have your permanent set of teeth. And it is said that once those come out, the permanent set, that's it. If you lose them, you lose it. You lose a lot, not just your teeth, but your ability to process certain kinds of food, but your beautiful smile. If you have lost your teeth and you are wearing dentures, when you take them out, you recognize how your face is. You look very different without them. But the health of your mouth actually reflects the quality of the nutrition of your body. Let me say it again, the health of your mouth and your teeth is actually a reflection of your quality of nutrition. Teeth are not just teeth. Teeth are actually alive. Yes, they are. So let's look at some basic modern dentistry suppositions. Remember, we're giving information. Information is just that. It's to evaluate, to cause us to think. And this is what we must do. Now, traditionally, normally, we are oriented to think that tooth decay and gum disease are actually caused by bacteria in the mouth. This is what we are taught. And that if you regularly brush your teeth and floss your teeth and remove all the food particles in the mouth that the bacteria feed on, then you will have better oral health. And so we spend a lot of resources on this, on toothpaste and pickers and flossing materials and so on. And after you brush your teeth, you should rinse your mouth with chemicals to kill the bacteria. But I want you to remember, over the last 20, 30, maybe 40 years, a lot of information have been coming out in terms of the microbiome. And is it possible then that there is need for a microbiome in the mouth that we may be destroying, that may be important to our health? Now, another thing is that you should always have the dentist to remove the plaque from off your teeth on a regular basis. So we are going to look at some research to see if that is actually helping. No, please don't think I'm saying don't do it. I'm not a dentist, nor am I pretending to be. We're just giving information that is in the research out there. So these are some of the principles that are out there that are the only way to have healthy teeth. So we're going to examine some of these this afternoon. The standard treatment is if you get a decay, if your teeth starts to rot, deteriorate, then you want to remove the cavity. And how do you do that? You drill it and you fill it with some kind of material. Now, maybe not all of us, but a large percentage of us have had this experience where we had a tooth or teeth that were decaying and we would fill it. Now, if the decay actually reached the root, then you kill the tooth and do a root canal. And if the root canal fails, then of course, you pull that teeth out because that teeth is diseased. And then you may have dentures and implants, and they are going to replace the space that the tooth was missing. Because when you take teeth out, it does affect the alignment in your mouth in some way or the other, because the teeth are there for many purposes. When God designed things, we don't always understand all of the purposes. As time unfolds, we get more and more understanding. So the key is we want to protect our teeth from decay, and we don't want to have gum disease because we have bacteria that are creating a problem. And so we need to have good oral hygiene. Now, if we look at the teeth in terms of its anatomy, we recognize that the teeth actually is not a dead piece of material in the mouth at all. And so if you take one of those, longitudinal section of the teeth, you will see nerves and different kinds of material. You have the dental pulp in the center, and in that pulp you have nerves. There actually is a blood supply. So the teeth need nourishment. So the pulp is like the heart of the tooth. It's interesting. God made us really fearfully and wonderfully. And in that pulp, you have the nerves and the blood vessels, the cells that actually keep your tooth healthy. Teeth need nutrients, they need oxygen, just like any other tissue. And any system, any structure that utilizes oxygen and nutrients is going to produce waste, and that waste must be removed. So we have a compound called dentine that is composed mainly of minerals that surrounds the pulp, and that is what starts to give you that hardened part. Anything that is soft needs protection. And so that's why we have, let's say we have brain, nice soft tissue, and it is surrounded by the skull bones. It is protected. Truly, when David said we are fearfully and wonderfully made, he meant just that. When you consider how we are in terms of organization, structure, and function, then we can say this could not have been an evolutionary feature. It is too orderly and arranged and organized. You don't get order out of chaos like that. You don't get order out of chaos just like that. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. So you have the pulp, and then of course you have the dentine made up of minerals. And if you don't have adequate minerals, then how can you make your dentine? Um, and this dentine is going to surround the pulp and it carries sensations from the tooth surface to the nerves. So your ability to feel is based because of the dentine, the structure of the tooth. And then you have the enamel that is going to cover the tooth, it's like the protective covering. That's hard covering, which is actually harder than bone. It's the hardest part of the body because your teeth have to grind food. And so it must be composed of a material that does not easily wear. And for that to happen, imagine man evolved and enamel and dentine had to evolve. Now tell me, what would man be eating with all the things, that he has to eat and the variety? So the teeth is, basically, these are the basic things of the teeth. We got to go into other things, but not today. The teeth is actually anchored in the bone and protected by the gum tissue. So around the root of the teeth, you have the gum that is protecting the teeth. It is a wonderful mechanism. And again, Psalm 139:14, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. Now, a lot of the work that I will talk about is from Dr. Weston Price, who was a prominent dentist and actually head of the American Dental Association. He was born in the late 1800s. And as you could see, he came to prominence as a dentist in the United States. He was actually head of the American Dental Association in his time. Now, a lot of the work he did get some flack for it, but a very prominent guy, and he actually traveled the world in the 1930s because he was seeing some changes. He recognized that his older patients had better dental health than the younger patients. And he was trying to figure out, well, what is the reason for that? He was getting more tooth decay and stuff in the younger folks. In the older folks, he was seeing less of it. And so he decided to travel the world. He went to all of the continents except one and looked at indigenous people. He looked at the people found in these traditional continents. He looked at how they live. He looked at their dental health. He studied the nutrition. He studied their general health, not just their dental health. So he was trying to find out, why are people having more dental problems as the generations moved on. The older folks, the people who lived simpler lives, they had less problems. And what he found is that the native people on traditional diets had little to no tooth decay. They had healthy bones and teeth. They had very strong immune systems. And what he did now, he gathered samples of the food from these people and he tested them for their nutritional content. Remember, the premise in the normal scheme of things is that these bacteria are causing tooth decay. And so we must kill the bacteria to prevent dental problems. But Dr. Price, in his research, he is looking at the nutrition, he's looking at the general health, he's looking at the dental health. And here is what he found. He said in different areas, he was finding a trend. So when he went in this isolated area in the Swiss and the Alps, he found that the diet of the natives there, they had 10 times more fat-soluble vitamins, 4 times more calcium, 3.7 times more phosphorus. This is important. Now, remember in those days in the 1930s, they didn't have as much information in terms of all the minerals and trace minerals and all the vitamins and so on. So he is just assessing what he had available. So he was finding that in terms of fat-soluble vitamins, 10 times more. And this is in the Swiss Alps. Then among the Gaelic people, that is on the European continent, he says they ate 10 times more fat-soluble vitamins. Same thing, more, 10 times. 2.1 times more calcium, 2.3 times more phosphorus. So he's finding a trend here among the Aborigines in Australia. So it's not just he just did this in the United States. He find that their diets contain 4.6 times more calcium, 6.2 times more phosphorus, and 10 times more fat-soluble vitamins. So he's finding a trend that in native peoples who live simple lives, who eat a varied diet, they are having more nutritionally dense foods. So the native people had generally 10 times more fat-soluble vitamins. The native peoples, 10 times more fat-soluble vitamins, 4 times more water-soluble vitamins, 3.4 times more macro minerals. So based on their diet and their lifestyle, they had more nutritionally dense foods. He also found that this is what he's found. This is the research now, that the indigenous people, they eat mammals, they eat fish, they eat birds, they eat the reptiles, a lot of them, they ate the organs of the animals they ate. So they ate the brain and the heart and the kidneys and the glands and other internal organs. Now, you know, the internal organs would have what? More nutrients. They also had raw dairy and eggs. They also ate insects like grasshoppers and ants and so on. They also ate wild berries, leaves, and roots, and other vegetation. So they ate lots of vegetables. They also ate animal products. Now, they rarely ate the same thing for any extended period of time, so their diets were often highly varied. I want you to think about that because our diets are not widely varied. We eat much less variety, and we eat a lot of things that they don't eat. So, I mean, we don't eat a lot of things that they ate. It says, none of their food was refined. There was no pesticide. There was no chemical. There was no refining of the food. And the last one is what caught me, says they ate very little grain. Today we eat much grain. We eat lots of wheat. Most of our food is made from what? Wheat, flour. Whether it's white or whole wheat, it doesn't matter. Remember in the book Counsels to the Church, page 101, one of the foods that has been modified by the enemy, he said Satan himself was at the head of this, was wheat, the fruit of the vine, and other foods, and made them into poison. And that is one of the most successful ways to destroy the people of God, well, people in general. So we see here, native people did not use a lot of processed foods. They did not use a lot of grain. They ate from the land, wide variety. So their food was nutritionally dense. Remember, teeth need a lot of nutrition. They really ate the same thing. So for most of us, especially if you're from Caribbean, then you know rice done 5 or 6 different ways, flour done 5 or 10 different ways, and that's what we do. And we have been oriented in our nutrition that you need carbohydrate for energy. But we are seeing here that the indigenous people, they were healthier, but they weren't eating like this. So part of the refined lifestyle, the refined thinking has created some problems for us in our dental health. So Dr. Price, here's what he found. Good health is a sign of good dental health, is a sign of good general health. The healthier your body is, the healthier your teeth are going to be. He also found that tooth decay is a sign of nutritional deficiency. I want you to go back to maybe if you have been on the platform when the platform began. One of the things that I may have done on this platform, maybe if I didn't, maybe I should just share it now, is that there are really 4 causes of disease. Number 1 is mental and emotional stress. Number 2 is nutritional deficiency. Number 3 is toxin. Number 4 is physical trauma. You can put all diseases under those four categories. That coupled with what we call constitution, which is your physical and emotional makeup. So the constitution is like the soil in which you live, and you find these factors of emotional and mental stress, nutritional deficiencies, toxins, and physical trauma. They are impacting on the constitution. Based on your constitution will be your general health. So if you had good health, then you would not have the impact on your health as we think. So tooth decay is a sign of nutritional deficiency. Another thing he found is that in these areas where the indigenous people live, the crime rates were low. And there is research after to correlate disease and criminal behavior because sick people are not rational. Sick people do not know how to love and care for others as they ought. Sick people live in fear as opposed to in concern for the good of the community. Indigenous people live for the community. People in refined societies live for themselves. And so there's a lot of fear. One of the reasons the crime is not so high is because people don't want to go to jail. It's not because they don't want to commit the crime, but remember that before a crime is committed, it is committed in the mind. So many people have these thoughts, but in indigenous people, they are living for the society. In other words, they have things common. So disease and criminal behavior is linked to poor nutrition. Now, indigenous groups that had the highest immunity to tooth decay, they ate foods from at least two of the following groups. Remember, this is not a recommendation. This is research that Dr. Weston Price found. So this is what I'm saying. They ate dairy, as we said before. They ate fish. They ate organs of land animals. So they ate two. Remember we said before here, this is what they ate. They did eat vegetables. They ate a lot of fruit. A lot of vegetables, plants are edible that we have forgotten, but they may be right in your backyard and you do not know them. So let's see how we can maybe have a different view. Now, tooth decay actually, from the research of Dr. Price and others, occur when your body chemistry falls out of balance. Remember, go back to Ministry of Healing 1 to 7. Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. So this is in keeping this definition of tooth decay occurring when the body chemistry falls out of balance is consistent with what God is saying about disease. An effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. When your chemistry change, disease steps in. Well, how do we look at that? Remember, all of us are made up of cells. Cells come together to make up tissues, organ system, and the organism. If the cell lives in a fluid medium that must be supplied with oxygen and the nutrients and the capacity to remove waste. Oxygen activates the cells. Nutrients builds the tissues. Therefore, if I don't have adequate oxygen and the nutrients, then cells cannot have the material they need to function the way they function with everything that we are bombarded with. Any system that utilizes oxygen and nutrients will produce waste. And so off balance in chemistry is going to create a problem. So the uptake of oxygen and nutrients and the removal of waste is occurring at speeds of up to 80 times per second. And therefore, anything that impedes that is going to change chemistry. Your teeth are not being properly mineralized because of deficiencies in minerals and fat-soluble vitamins and water-soluble vitamins. So we need nutrients to build up our teeth, but we ain't getting it. You see, you may say why we're not getting it. The body's going to prioritize. We have to work out salvation issues. The body's going to take nutrients to the brain, and the teeth will have to suffer. Yeah? Refined carbohydrates cause the wrong kind of bacteria to colonize your teeth and your intestines. We're talking here about your biofilm. Those colonies of bacteria that may be beneficial or detrimental. So because we use a lot of refined carbs or breads and or pretzels and all the sugars and so on, they are determining the type of microbe that colonize our teeth and our intestines. And tooth decay and gum disease, they also have environmental causes, and we can actually determine how we respond in our environment. So we were saying that the teeth needs nutrients, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus. They say, oh, calcium for teeth. Calcium is only one, and calcium doesn't even work by itself. You need a proper balance of calcium and magnesium and phosphorus, boron, sulfur, zinc. These are micronutrients. Um, these are important part of the structural system, and the teeth is part of that. You need vitamin C, very important for collagen production. Connective tissue on which your teeth and your bones are formed. If you don't have connective tissue, how are you going to form your tissues in the first place? And then, of course, you have vitamins A and D. They are very important for the mineralizing of bone and teeth, and a deficiency in any of these can make the bone and the teeth soft. Now, there are experiments out there that doctors have done as they mineralize people, especially children, their teeth form and hardness changes. So, in 2004, the Journal of American Nutrition examined food composition changes from 1950 to 1999, recorded in the USDA food composition table. 43 crops were examined, showing the statistically reliable decline in 6 nutrients. Look at this. Declines were observed in protein, calcium, phosphorus, iron, riboflavin, and ascorbic acid. This was done in 2004. Now, what is happening now? You have good-looking food. Most of the food and the soils, it's only 3 nutrients are generally replaced: NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Calcium is hardly ever replaced, magnesium and these things. So how are we going to get them? Alkaline minerals combined with acid minerals to form salts. Very important. We need our mineral salts. And in foods, you have mineral salts occurring naturally. Whole foods, that is. When we process food, we remove them. A lot of them are lost. So, for example, you have sodium chloride in salt, you have calcium phosphate in your bones and your teeth, you have magnesium sulfate in Epsom salt. So they come together. When we talk about them individually, but most nutrients in nature does not exist like that. You have your minerals that affect the pH in your body. The pH affect the type of microbes that thrive in certain conditions or in certain places. Calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium, manganese, and iron, these are alkaline. And chloride and phosphorus and sulfur, these are acidic. So if you have more acidity, for example, you have lots of stress, you produce more acid. You have refined diet, you produce more acid. Guess what is going to happen? Your body is going to try to balance your pH by pulling nutrients from your bones and teeth. This is one of the reasons you find women after they get pregnant, if they don't have good nutrition, they start to lose their teeth and their bones start to give problems. Minerals occur in protein matrices in the bone. And so magnesium and heme, magnesium in chlorophyll, you have heme in iron. And during digestion, the protein portion breaks apart and the mineral is released so you can have it available. God put them in whole foods so that we can get them. And then, of course, they are transported across the villi so we can have them available. This is just more chemistry. I can probably skip that, but calcium is important in bone formation. Not that it is not, but not calcium carbonate. It's the most abundant mineral in the body. It's actually called the king of nutrients, calcium. When calcium gets into the cell, other nutrients gets into the cell. So if calcium doesn't get in, if you don't have calcium, then other nutrients are going to have a problem to get to where they are needed. Calcium is actually a major mineral in bones and teeth, and it also is important not just in bones and teeth, but for muscle contraction, heart action, nerve impulse, and blood clotting, and an important alkalizer. So if the body is acidic, I'm eating acid food, what will the body do? It needs to balance all the time. It's going to pull calcium from bones, pull calcium from teeth. Yeah. So we need minerals, other minerals For the calcium to work, for example, we need magnesium and calcium operate in a 2-to-1 ratio. For every molecule of calcium the body utilizes, it requires 2 molecules of magnesium. So calcium is a contractor, magnesium is a relaxer. So we need them to work in their synergy. But other nutrients are needed as well, as we see here. You need vitamin D to utilize calcium. You need vitamin K to utilize calcium, vitamin C, zinc, silica, boron, vanadium, and you need proteins and fatty acids. We have a body, and the body does not operate as a part. Every system in the body is made up of organs, and organs is made up of tissues, and tissues are made up of cells, and they work together. Every organ system must make its contribution to what we call homeostasis or balance. And for that to happen, every cell must be supplied with a wide variety of nutrients, adequate oxygen, and facilities for removal of the waste produced in the production of energy. So if you want to enhance your calcium intake through supplementation, but the best way is through food, is just about for what we call RDA daily. You need about 1,000 milligrams of calcium per day. If you are an adult between 19 and 50, so you need just about that. If you are pregnant, you're nursing, you need higher amounts. Calcium intake in native cultures and among healthy populations in the world today average between 1,500 and 2,500 milligrams per day. So if you look at it, the native people were taking in more calcium because they ate good food with calcium. So what are some indications that you may have a calcium problem? Problems with your teeth, problems with your bone, or problems with your bone and your joints. Yes, nervous system problems. You cannot sleep well. Yeah, mental issues, emotional issues, tics and twitches may be involved in there, especially if magnesium is deficient as well. Heart problems, hypertension, increase heart rate, and so on. So we see calcium is important. And so you may want to, if you are not getting enough calcium because you're not getting enough whole foods, then you may want to supplement. And that supplementation is in place. You have chelated forms, calcium citrate, malate, lactate, and gluconate. But calcium citrate is more easily assimilated in the body. Not every form is the same. They will all help, but one of the better forms, more absorbable forms, is your calcium citrate. Yep. Now, you want to avoid calcium carbonate. Yeah, calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is not very good. It doesn't help the body. It affects the stomach acid. And of course, they made it from oyster shells and limestone and so on. High levels of free calcium in the blood is going to increase the risk because if you're not utilizing it, then it's going to circulate in the blood, increasing the risk of hardening arteries and dental plaque, kidney stones, and cancer. So you want to be careful. Don't just say more is better. You want to have natural thing. Magnesium is another one that is needed. It's the many people don't really need calcium, they really need magnesium. But why? Because we need 2 molecules of magnesium for every molecule of calcium. What does that mean? If you don't have enough magnesium, your body can't use the calcium properly anyway. Yep. So we need to have that happening. Magnesium is used in over 300 enzymatic reactions, which is why so many symptoms can occur in deficiencies. What we mean by that is now every metabolic process require enzymes. Enzymes are like the catalysts for the reaction to take place. So it's important to have your magnesium. It affects your muscles and so on, your nervous system, your circulation. We're not talking about that, your bowel function, kidney stones and all these things. Magnesium, you want to get about 400 to 500 per day, but you have many foods have magnesium, all your green leafy vegetables and so on. The best forms of application is citrate, glycinate, malate. Threonate is helpful for brain and memory. You have magnesium chloride is you can do that topically, that's not for internal use. And you can also do your Epsom salt bath. That is magnesium as well. So once or twice a week, you can put about 2 pounds of magnesium Epsom salt in your bath and you soak for 20 minutes to half an hour. It's an excellent way to get magnesium through the skin as well. You see how wonderful our God is? Yeah. Then we want our water-soluble vitamins, very important. Vitamin C is one of them. That is very important for your bones. So Dr. Weston Price, also looked at this native people because they ate a lot of animal organs. They got vitamins and so on. You need about 2 to 5,000 per day for healthy adults. Vitamin C, very important, as we see, helps to form collagen. Yeah, recovery from surgery. Of course, you see here, it helps with gum disease with CoQ10, and I'm going to talk about this because one of the things that is very helpful in gum disease is CoQ10. Because when we see gum disease, dental issues, it may be an issue other places, especially the heart. Vitamin C for circulation, varicose veins, spider veins, and high blood pressure, and so on. Yeah. Right. So what are some of the things that we find that can promote tooth decay? Well, remember, many people are using the refined foods, the sodas, the soft drinks, very high in sugar, extremely high, and of course the carbonate, the refined sugars, the candies. We have such refined lives. The ice creams, the pastries, the sweetened foods, the fruit juices, the dried. Now, many times people say, well, oh, I'm going to dry the fruits. But remember, when you remove the water from even fruits, you increase the sugar content, and then they add preservatives to keep the color in. Most dried fruits, if you dry them naturally, would not have such rich color. So they add the sulfites and so on to maintain the color. Those things are going to affect the quality of the food because remember, sulfites are acidic and acid affects microbes. Then we have the chips, the crackers, the pretzels, the breakfast cereal. When you go to the supermarket, the cereal aisle is huge. But what are cereals made of primarily? Is it not refined grains? And then because when you refine foods and you take out, they lose all the nutrients, they taste flat. What are they going to add? They are going to add sugar. Now there's something called sensory specific satiety. That is the right amount of sugar and or salt or fat to help you to want to eat the food. So they study these things, sensory specific satiety. And then there's another thing called mouth feel. Most cereals are what? Soft or crunchy? Crunchy. Now, go in nature and see how many foods actually are like that. So, to cause you to want to eat the food, the brain now is a battle for the mind. Food is going to be created, tested by human beings. So, this is why you have food giving you that feeling. Besides umami, this is besides umami. This is mouthfeel and sensory specific satiety, that the right amount of sugar, the right amount of salt, the right amount of fat is going to pull you to want to eat that food. But that food is going to affect your dental health and it's going to affect your intestinal health. The fine grain, the white flour, the white rice. Remember, the native people did not eat these foods at all. And so their dental health and their gut health was different, which meant that their biofilm, their microbes were different. So they did not get the diseases that we get today. So here are some foods with moderate potential for decay. Remember, this here are these promote these high risk foods, your sweetened foods. Today, what are we giving children? Even the baby formulas are very sweet. If you taste breast milk, it's not very sweet. And we culture the children's taste buds to love refined foods. But remember, we have known for over 150 years that refined foods, especially wheat, are poison. So if we continue, what are we doing? We are poisoning ourselves. Cook vegetables so we don't overcook the food. Blanching is in place. Why do we blanch most things that can be blanched? Why do we do it? Well, we blanch plants because they are fixed. They cannot run away from the environment like animals can. Plants have to survive in harsh environments, and so they produce phytochemicals to prevent them from being destroyed in the environment. And so if we consume all of vegetables in certain states, we may have a challenge in our digestive system. So we can blanch. The other thing is you don't just harvest them straight and eat them. So let us say you don't have any facility for blanching. No problem. God is so wonderful. You harvest the vegetables and you store them upside down. When you store vegetables right side up, the nutrients are always tending to go to the apex. If you grow up in societies where there are a lot of senior citizens, they will store their stuff, they harvest the callaloo and they harvest the amaranth and they harvest the bay leaf. They always turn them down because the nutrients now is going to go down, as opposed to if you turn them up, they are going to go up and escape into the environment. Remember, these are chemicals. The phytonutrients, especially the volatile oils, which are really important for their medicinal properties, but they're all carbon-based. So your whole grains, including your breads and your cereals and your pastas, your luncheon meat, and not a entire set because most of the fruit we have, even though they are called apples and grapes, remember, that's not how they looked originally. Most of it have been engineered for the market. Most fruits, wild in the wild, are not usually very large, but the taste is great. So you want nutritionally dense foods. Here is one that some may be interested in. Xylitol is a naturally occurring alcohol. Yes, in food you have naturally think, natural thing. It is about just as sweet as sucrose with 40% less calories, 75% less carbohydrates than sucrose. And it does not cause an insulin reaction. Xylitol is natural and does not increase insulin because a lot of the problems we have is because of high insulin levels. Now, look at the glycemic index. 7. Wheat, whole wheat, the glycemic index is above 60. Whole wheat, the glycemic index is above 60. Xylitol actually helps with carbohydrate craving. It helps prevent middle ear infections. It actually helps combat yeast infection. Xylitol actually encourages the remineralization of the bone, and it balances blood sugar cravings and so on. So xylitol is something that is very, very helpful. This is available out there. It's natural, it's not synthetic. Many people have a lot of blood sugar cravings for whatever reason. And God has designed things out there that can actually help with that. So xylitol inhibits plaque and cavities. So it can help with your dental issues. The remineralization of the tooth enamel, xylitol helps with that. Xylitol also increases the production of saliva. You need saliva to provide the correct environment for your microbes in the mouth. So it's going to relieve dry mouth. So many times you are thirsty, it's not thirsty. Xylitol inhibits gum infections and periodontal disease and is usually used in your natural mouthwashes and toothpaste. So xylitol is very helpful. In many instances, people have gotten relief from lots of their mouth problems by the use of xylitol. So native people would usually clean their teeth with small twigs. A lot of them did not brush their teeth. They did not have toothbrushes like we do. They didn't brush their teeth, and yet they did not have tooth decay. Many of us brush our teeth and we still have deterioration of our teeth. So they usually had these twigs, and in my own country where I live, I remember when I was a child, I was told by my mother they didn't have toothbrushes, and there was this particular plant. I have to look at the scientific name, but they call it clean teeth. And they will get this, the stem of this plant, and they would get an object, and they would kind of like pound the end of it so that it will fray. And they use this to clean their teeth. Yeah, so these small twigs. Um, and usually they say these plants had antibacterial and astringent action. The antibacterial would destroy harmful microbes. The astringent will keep things nice and tight. That's what astringents do. Astringent prevent excessive flow, so they're going to tighten up loose tissue. And you need your gum tissue to be nice and tight. Yeah, if you have an abscess that's loose, too much fluid, an astringent will tighten that up. So the common barks that they use would be things like your neem, cinnamon, tea tree, olive, walnut, apple, fig, and willow. Now, in the Caribbean, we may not have that where you are. So there are other plants. Everywhere would have that. Now, you have also natural tooth powders can be used. You can make those from things like your white oak, black walnut, prickly ash, thyme, myrrh, charcoal, salt, and baking soda. So many people mix several of these together to make their tooth powder to clean their teeth or to have their oral hygiene more efficient. You can have your natural mouthwash. Yes, you can make a natural mouthwash. You can purchase them or you can make it yourself. Some of the ingredients would be things like your xylitol. Remember all the wonderful things that xylitol does. Yeah, colloidal silver, baking soda, salt. But if you're using the salt, you don't use the colloidal silver. Don't never use them together. And then you have the herbal extracts that you can add like your neem, your spilanthes, and your propolis. These are anti-infection herbs, myrrh, cinnamon, golden seal, witch hazel. Some are antimicrobial, some are astringent. Witch hazel is astringent. Golden seal is antimicrobial. You know, some cinnamon is also astringent as well, and it does provide the opportunity for help in your microbes and so on. And then your essential oils, clove and myrrh, thyme, tea tree, cinnamon, peppermint, eucalyptus. And you're not using all of these, these are just examples of herbs that can be used in making a mouthwash formula. Or if you purchase a natural mouthwash formula, you will see several of these. It's not that you have to take all and make it. And remember, this is for educational purposes. So we're just giving lots of examples. Then there's something called oil pulling in Ayurvedic treatment. Oil pulling is another thing. Remember, this is information. Many people think that, well, in education, you just teach people one thing. No, there's a lot of things out there. People ask questions. Like somebody had asked a question in terms of, I have to look for that question that we need to answer later in the question and answer. So oil pulling is one of the things that some people have encountered where you swish some oil and it is said that it helps with a lot of systemic diseases. You get certain oils and you swish it around the mouth to remove bacteria from the teeth and the gums. What you do, some of the common oils that you're going to use are things like your sunflower seed oil, coconut oil, sesame oil, olive oil. Now, this would not be those that have been exposed to heat. Yep. So you want to use those that are cold pressed. And how do you do it? You take a teaspoon of the vegetable oil and you swish it in the mouth. You want to keep the lips closed and you work the oil in the mouth. Like you push and suck the oil. You push and pull the oil through the teeth and over the entire surface of the mouth. You make sure that you relax, you're not tense, and you want to keep the oil and the saliva in there for 15 to 20 minutes. You do not gargle that oil, you do not swallow it. In that oil is going to be lots of impurities. You remember your blood supply through your gums and your teeth. You remember it's a cycling, and one of the your in terms of the lymphatic system. Remember, the body is going to dump all the the lymph to get it back into the circulation in the jugular and subclavian veins in the neck, and they are very close to the teeth, very close to the jaw. So there may be some merit in that if you are inclined. Many people have this impacted wisdom tooth, and Dr. Price found that proper nutrition creates a wider jaw so that the wisdom teeth do not become impacted. So in native cultures, Dr. Price he wasn't finding impacted wisdom tooth because of the high density of nutrients that they consumed. The jaws were wider. So in refined cultures, people tend to be taller because they use more carb. But in indigenous people, they had stronger bones, wider jaws, so there was enough space for the wisdom teeth to grow. So unfortunately, few children in modern societies get enough nutrients to properly form the jaw and allow the wisdom teeth to naturally come out. And so most people have to pull these out. But in indigenous cultures, this didn't happen because they had different nutrition. Then we have crooked teeth is also a sign of a lack of nutrition for healthy teeth, jaw, and bone formation. So what do? They use braces to correct this, but good nutrition is also very helpful for this. Good nutrition is very helpful. So in one example that I came across was that here was this child who was having crooked teeth, was scheduled for surgery, and the mother changed her nutrition by giving a very important mineral, multi-mineral supplement. And in 6 weeks, the teeth started to adjust themselves and become more straight, less crooked. So our nutrition is determining our dental health. Gum disease, what we call gingivitis, inflammation of the gums. The gums are inflamed and bacteria start to grow underneath the gum line. The gum is receding, you see they're receding, and makes the teeth and the bone more prone to decay. The truth is, gum disease is not a localized problem. It is usually a sign of general inflammation in the tissues, especially the cardiovascular system. Gum disease is a good indication of cardiovascular health. And so people with gum disease are at higher risk for having heart disease. And one of the interventions for gum disease is CoQ10. CoQ10, yes, helps with gingivitis. Now, if you think about that, now imagine you have high cholesterol and you're using a statin. Then you don't get CoQ10 because how statins work is that they inhibit the formation of cholesterol by interjecting in that by affecting what we call the malleolate cascade. That's how you get cholesterol made in the body. But it's the same cascade that makes CoQ10. So that's why when you take some of the medication, you inhibit other processes that are necessary, things that the body make that are necessary for its health. So CoQ10 is going to help there, but with your heart health as well. So your gum disease and your heart health are very intimately linked. Oral bacteria can affect the heart when they enter the bloodstream and they attach to these plaques in the coronary artery and can contribute to clot formation. So oral health and heart health and other aspects of health are related. Blood clots, what they do is that they can obstruct blood flow. And once that is happening, you're restricting nutrients and oxygen that are required for the other systems to operate, including the heart. Studies have pointed to the relationship between periodontal disease and stroke. So if you're having clots, it increases the possibility of stroke. So your gum health, which cause these bad guys to enter, the body is going to lay down cholesterol as an internal plaster, biofilm to try to trap things, and those things affect the health. In one study, people diagnosed with acute cerebrovascular ischemic stroke were found more likely to have an oral infection when compared to those under the control group. So dental health is not only an issue of dental health, it's health in general. So here are some natural remedies for gum disease. Number one, CoQ10, white oak bark. This is an astringent. Black walnut is going to help with your gut health because remember, your oral health and your gut health are intimately linked. Activated charcoal. Neem, Spilanthes, we did talk to that. Populus, myrrh, xylitol, cinnamon, and colloidal silver. These are just some. In other countries, there are other plants that people have used successfully. So, for example, I remember sometimes clove would be very helpful, especially if you have maybe a toothache. Ginger can be helpful as well. I remember I was having a problem with one of my tooth, and I was having a problem with a tooth, and it was nighttime, and I was having no end to pain. In my country, you can't just go to the facility because it's closed. And I just went outside, I got some plantain. I chewed up some of the leaf and just put it on the tooth. And guess what? Significant reduction in the pain. Yeah. So there are things out there. There are many other things that we may be able to share, but just know that these are there. So we want to really watch most things. They say fluoride is important for health of the teeth. Well, fluoride has lots of hazards and it may do some things, but it does sometimes more harm than good. It has been shown to cause cancer and birth defects. It displaces iodine and depresses thyroid function. So because the halogens, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, the body needs iodine for thyroid function. If you put lots of chlorine, you displace your iodine. Bromine, you displace your iodine. Fluorine, you displace your iodine because they are much more reactive. It depresses testosterone in men and thus weakens willpower. So in the concentration camps in Germany, they fluoridated the water. And when they put fluorine in the water, they found that those in the camps were much more easy to control. Has killed children who have swallowed it during fluoride treatment at the dentist. So you really want to avoid fluoridated toothpastes and mouthwash. You need to be more careful in terms of how we operate. Avoid the fluorine treatments. You want to filter the water. And of course, be careful which water you may drink. If you have an abscess, then raw garlic may help, but it doesn't mean that you don't go to and seek medical treatment. These are just things that you have options to buy you some time. If you have an abscess, it means you have a problem and it may be systemic. You have essential oils in fixed oils, for example, clove in maybe olive oil or coconut oil or one of these things. Thyme is going to be helpful as well to help with the infection. Colloidal silver can be used, and of course, echinacea to build the immune system. Many people are doing the root canals. Now think about it. A root canal is actually a diseased tooth, and there may be residues of infection there that may be systemic. So in other words, you are keeping a disease thing inside you. Bacteria that cause most root canals infection are not on the surface of the tooth, but come from the inside of the tooth. So those microbes are going to be cycling in the blood supply. Dr. Weston Price extracted teeth with root canals from people and implanted them in rabbits. His research found that rabbits would develop the condition that the person with the tooth had within a few weeks. So there was transfer. So think about if you had several root canals, those are some of the problems that you may have. And so there are things that we have done. Even people are now changing from the mercury fillings to something that is more compatible with the human physiology. And this is what the education is to do, provide us with information so you can make better decisions. I remember I had one of my in-laws, he had a filling as a child and he was being uncontrollable and lots of pain. And his mother took him to the doctor, took the filling out, and his pain was gone. He became more controllable. So when we put things in the body that is not part of self, it does affect how the body operates. The idea is our teeth are very important. If you have your teeth have been removed because maybe of your age, maybe of accident, there is the possibility of having dentures. but know that there are connections between your teeth and the rest of your body. And every teeth in your mouth is connected through your nerves to some other part of the body. So whenever a teeth is destroyed, when you have any problems in your mouth, it's going to affect other parts of the body. What we need to do is spend more time being intentional, deliberate, and purposeful in terms of how we take care of our dental health, and know that there is information out there that we can benefit from. We can evaluate it. Let's do like the Bereans. When they received the word, they received it with all gladness. But then they went home and they searched to see whether those things were so. God bless you and have a wonderful evening. And here's to a much better smile.